Welcome to a special primary election edition of the NWI.com Political Roundtable. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of the Times. Joined with me, Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of the Times, and Times Assistant Managing Editor Crista Zivanovic. It was, of course, as expected, a light turnout in today's election. There were some interesting results. What do you think were the highlights from tonight?
I would think in Porter County, the highlight is the incumbents felt a lot of pressure. Nancy Adams, of course, got tossed as county commissioner. Jim Biggs barely won in his race. I think that was an 11-vote victory, as I recall. Jim Polaric tossed out on the county council. I think voters in Porter County are, just fed up with the way things are going.
Tired of the infighting.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they're ready to move the county in a new direction.
Yeah, and certainly Jeff Good won a pretty convincing victory over Nancy Adams.
Oh, absolutely. That was, 1,200 votes?
Yeah.
Pretty close to that.
Yeah. And what do you think in Lake County, Crista?
I was surprised that Kimberly Robinson was able to pull it off. She trounced Mary Elgin. Mary Elgin
for Calumet
Township trustee, and she did get the endorsement of Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson. That might have helped. Mary Elgin was seen as embattled, even though she appeared to be trying to cut costs and park some take-home cars. She was still embroiled in a battle with the state. It'll be interesting to see what happens to that lawsuit now, because Kim Robinson apparently wants to extend an olive branch to the Republicans. Rick Rifa, Republican on Griffith's Town Council, doesn't think she's the antidote for the ills of the, issue between Griffith and Calumet Township. But I think Kim Robinson's going to give it a good try. And also, Sheriff John Bunsich, incumbent.
Let me jump in here with one thing about Kim Robinson. She did say that she would drop the lawsuit. So by dropping so by dropping the lawsuit, what this means is that basically she's got to, if she's elected, make sure that Calumet Township drops the spending so much so that it's within 11 times, I think 12 times the state average for a township, which means she's got quite a ways to go, but that then complies with what Rick Rifa and the Griffith people want, is to cut township spending so that it's not a tax burden on them as much.
And not to drag it out, not to drag that piece of it out, but I do sympathize with what Mary Elgin was up against, because every 30 days people can come, and if they can show need, they can get township support. So at what point the state is going to need to step in, I think, at some point in this particular township's situation, and say at some point they need to go on regular state welfare and not be a drain on the township. So that'll be interesting to see how she finagles that and handles that. And Sheriff Bunsich won, incumbent, and Mayor McDermott, who is the Lake Democratic Party chairman, said that if there's a low voter turnout, he probably will win, and he did. And it seems like people, though, voters are satisfied with, I think they're concerned with all the amount of money that he has spent to get the Lake County Jail in compliance with the Department of Justice mandates, but the jail was in a mess when Sheriff Bunsich took over, and I think that people are satisfied with what he did, and now there's a little pushback now from the county council. We'll see going forward if he gets any more money to continue his trying to be in 100% compliance with the mandates.
I made the comment that there seemed to be no unforced errors in his campaign, and he won a pretty convincing victory, especially when you compare it to 4 years ago when he barely edged Richard Ligon in a race that had a lot more candidates, so there was the vote was a lot more split up. But he won, I think, in that election only 27% of the vote. Here it was closer to half the vote in a three-way race. But
and the other thing to look at here is that when you look at the really low voter turnout, the people who are really interested in that tend to be the ones who are county, but other police officers, and so county employees, the people with the real vested interest in this, their families, these are the ones who vote.
Right. It might only be 12% of registered voters, but that 12% are committed and care.
Right. Exactly. And so that's why you'll see in some of the Republican races, you'll see a really strong conservative edge to some of them, because those are the ones who tend to go out and vote.
Okay. Looking forward to the general election, do you see any interesting races? Porter County Sheriff, I think, Dave Reynolds versus Mike Brickner will be an interesting race.
That's going to be a really fascinating race. There was one Lake County race I wanted to bring up too. Was in Winfield Township, where the township trustee Raleigh Brower, who's a Republican, lost by, I'm doing the vote totals here, by 44 votes or something like that. And he was one that, if you'll remember, there was some press, Mark Chase wrote the story about how Raleigh Brower was using a township vehicle for personal use, and I think that bit him in the end.
Good one. One other race that I think will be interesting is the open seat in State Rep District 11 that was left open by Sulansky. And was that State Senate District? And it's going to be now Michael Aylesworth for the Republicans, who hails from Valparaiso, and James Mitro.
Well, closer to Council Hebron, actually.
Okay.
As I recall.
And James Mitro on the Democratic side, and Mike Aylesworth did say.
That's the state representative, I think, District 11 that you're talking
so here's
about.
what happened.
Yeah.
Here's what happened in that is that Sulansky is retiring in State Senate District 6.
And
so then Rick Niemeyer was in District 11 in the House.
you.
So he's running for the Senate now. So that's what opened up District 11.
So Niemeyer will be running against Roxana Hanford for State Senate District 6.
Right. But it did open up that seat, and I think that there's going to be money spent on both sides to try and capture that for the Democrats.
That's going to be a really expensive race.
Yes, I think so.
And before we end this, I do want to mention a big deal for people in Hebron. MSD Boone Township, their school referendum succeeded. Last time around, they lost by 4 votes. This time they won by 23, so by the narrowest of margin. Their taxes are going to go up, but the schools are going to get the funding that they need.
And look for more referendums to be on the ballot coming.
And what was interesting was 367 people, so out of the whole county, 2.84% of that cast nonpartisan votes, so that was solely turned out for that question alone.
So they did a good job capturing it this time, even it was close, but they did.
They did.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Thanks for watching this special edition of the Political Roundtable.